Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this broadcast. I'm Georgia Musgrave, the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Duffy Group, a premier executive recruitment firm based in Phoenix, Arizona, known for unbundling the search process and working in tandem with clients, resulting in an efficient and cost-effective recruiting partnership. Today's topic is a strategic partnership of higher degree, rethinking the way to find top talent in higher education. So please note, for this session, all participants on this call are muted. However, we love the interaction. So at the end of this session, there will be time for your questions. Please see to the left of the toolbar, to the right of the toolbar, depending upon where you're sitting. You can add questions on the chat, and there we will attempt to answer those questions if time allows. And also, in addition, if you have any challenges hearing me from your computer, your landline might provide better audio. So just let's go ahead and get started. We are so excited to announce that our guest here today is Beth Walker. She's the Dean of the College of Business at Colorado State University. And Dean Walker is here to discuss the recruitment challenges she faced and how partnering with the recruiting research firm delivered results and return on investment that's really worth sharing with leaders in a similar capacity. Good morning, Dean Walker.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
How are you doing? You doing well?
Doing great, thanks.
Great. Well, we're happy to have you. And as I mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Duffy Group. And here I serve as a go-to contact for colleges and universities seeking to find the hard-to-find talent around the country. And here I also have enjoyed 18 years as an administrator at the largest public university, Arizona State University. And as the assistant dean at ASU, I was actively involved in recruitment, people resource management, organizational design, culture change, and budget oversight. Since joining Duffy Group in 2014, I've had the pleasure of working alongside higher ed leaders across the U.S. to help them solve tricky recruitment issues and provide solutions in a changing environment. Now, as we know, the landscape in higher education has changed a great deal, and I'm assuming the audience attending here will agree with that. It's become more competitive than ever before, and universities and colleges are looking for new ways to do business economically and efficiently. Now, here you'll see are just some of the key issues that we hear from a number of higher ed leaders. And I'm assuming you feel the same way. I'll be interested to learn that as we go in our discussion. A decline in quality candidates is one key issue. Also, the high cost of contingency and retained fees associated with recruitment firms. And then, of course, the lack of internal resources or even the process gaps that often don't allow for a targeted strategy or personalized reach to highly desired candidates. So more than ever before, universities sense a need for strategic partnerships to ignite the recruiting process. Okay, I want to make sure everyone. Okay. 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 Hopefully everyone's still in the queue. Beth, can you hear me still? Going well?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Great, great. So again, I'd like then to turn to Beth Walker, the Dean of the College of Business at Colorado State. And at this time, and at the time you started, Dean Walker at CSU, I know that the fundraising efforts were a big priority. The college was experiencing a lot of turnover in vital positions. Can you share a little bit more about your transition in your position there?
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks, Georgia. I joined as Dean of the College of Business at Colorado State in summer of 2015. And as you mentioned, for a dean in particular, fundraising is a really important priority. Before joining the college, just about a month or so before the person who held the role of Executive Director of Development had resigned. So I was joining an organization that had no lead in fundraising the fundraising position. So I wanted to get going quickly to find a person to fill that role. And because it is so critical, I needed to find a great person.
Right.
So that's why I reached out to you for some assistance.
Thanks. Well, and so then, Beth, as it relates to your challenges, and as you said, you've already provided some information about the landscape there. Can you share what it was like to recruit at CSU? What were some of the challenges that you experienced there as you got started?
Well, I think y- I had this strong need to hire an executive director of development, and a really important position. And traditionally, the candidate pools were relatively small, and I was really interested in expanding the size and, most importantly, the quality of the pool for this particular position, because the position was so important. The university and college in particular hadn't used third-party recruiting firms extensively before, so that was somewhat new to us. I think there was a belief, and rightly so in many cases, that firms like that are expensive. They might even elongate the process, and so I didn't, of course, want to get into that situation. So the key was, finding a partner that we could work with that would actually help expedite the process, and it would really add tremendous value for our recruiting.
Now, as we know, Beth, there are several traditional recruitment strategies out there. We've got the personal networking, the online resources that can really cast a wide net and provide some access to some great candidates. And then some universities are actually hiring their own recruiters. And I'll bet you applied many of these same tactics. But I'm curious, can you share with us in the audience what strategies you were using at the time and what it was like?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, there are a set of traditional strategies, and folks definitely rely on their personal networks. You're posting the position on the university website and other traditional forms of advertising for a position like this. The history had been that the candidate pools weren't particularly large. So from my point of view, there was a really strong interest to do a more national search to get people from potentially outside of Colorado interested in this position, because I really wanted the very best person for
Right.
this particular role. So um, the other thing that you don't do, of course, and that you all were so helpful with, is that there could be people that are out there and they might not consider applying. They have this sort of maybe passive interest, and so there's sort of no way to reach folks like that with the strategies that we had been using.
Got it. Got it. And I'm curious to know, as far as budgets, was cost a factor for you? And if so, why?
Cost is always a factor, and many third party recruiting firms can be really expensive. And so I was looking for a firm that would deliver and to our goals of increasing the size and the quality of the candidate pool
Mhm.
without breaking our budget, and just really adding value. And at the end of the day, we're interested in the value delivered by our partner firm. So
That's
that's what was of greatest interest to me.
and that was really exciting. And it's so great. Obviously you reached out to us, which we're very proud of. But what was it about the recruitment research model that attracted you, and how did it differ from the traditional recruitment methods we had just talked about?
Well, I think in terms of our partnership, it was really truly fantastic. It was very customized. We have, as every university does, we have our own internal search process. We have our rules and regulations, and I'm sure they're unique to every university. So we clearly at the outside decided what we needed to do as a search in terms of our search process, and how you could help find and funnel additional candidates into our search. So
Right.
you worked really strongly with our leader of our search process to understand, okay, who are we looking for? What are the qualifications we're interested in? You helped us fine tune that, and you really worked with our process to make our search successful. So it was, a great relationship.
Well, speaking to that, then, can you share some of the benefits you experienced during the process?
Well, I think that throughout the process, we got a lot of continuous updates in terms of candidates that you had accessed and spoken to. And so we were really confident that we were going to build a great pool of candidates from which we could select our next executive director of development. I
Mm-hmm.
think in the end, we had actually a really short suspense because this position had been vacant, and this is one that you want to fill really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of slowing down the process, I think you actually helped us really speed it up because we had a great quality candidate pool. Sometimes you have a candidate pool and it's not strong enough, so you have to extend the deadline, the search
Right.
deadline. We of course didn't have to do that in this case,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and so that just, I think, speaks to the effectiveness of our the process and our working relationship.
And that sounds great. That sounds great. And tell me, did you feel that we were more selective in the process as well? You had mentioned the increase of size of the quality of the pool and so forth.
Yes, so I think the key thing is, you want quality candidates and you want folks in your pool that are not only a fit for the position, but that if they were offered the position, they would actually come.
Right.
And that's one of the things that you did very well, I felt, is when you're had discussions with potential candidates, you would assess their interests and their willingness in some cases to relocate,
Right.
so that when we would make that offer, we're talking to folks who would ultimately um, accept the position.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's good to hear. Very good to hear. Um, and if then I would just to offer the audience a visual of how the process works. Um, because we've been talking back and forth about how, you saw the partnership as valuable. We really start by gathering key intelligence. And in the case of CSU, as you've alluded to, Beth, we had a very tight timeline. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. You really wanted to get the show on the road. And so in the intelligence phase, we're really doing a deep dive of assessing the situation, asking targeted questions, and developing a customized strategy. So speaking to that, and you've touched on it already somewhat, Beth, what was your experience with the Duffy intake process?
So Duffy really worked directly with the chair of the search committee
Mm-hmm.
in um, interviewing that person, talking to that person about, okay, what are we looking for in this position? How do we define it? How do we describe it in a way that makes it attractive? That was a key value add, I felt like, that you added. So you
Yes.
helped us really refine the position and clarify the qualifications, the desired and the minimum qualifications, et cetera. So the intake process was was awesome, and I think it helped us a lot in really thinking through who we needed for this position.
Awesome. And then we began sourcing candidates, right? And
Mhm.
here we were uncovering the very passive talent, which is a key differentiator to the model itself, going beyond the job boards of these traditional tactics that we tend to use, and we've kind of covered those. Um, and the point here is we want to get the right people in front of you. So this is where we establish that pipeline you were talking about.
Mhm.
And in this case, I think we identified over, I think, 160 candidates.
Mhm.
um, so Beth, did you feel that the targeted strategy that we unleashed was able to identify candidates at the right level for the position?
Yeah, we were obviously thrilled with the number of candidates that you were able to send forward, but the key thing is are these the right candidates? And we felt like the pool was very strong
Right.
in terms of our set of finalists that we chose. So you guys did a great job at finding the people who fit the level of role that we were looking to fill.
Exactly. Well, that's good to hear, right? It's always good to hear. And the next step was to personally pitch the opportunity to those targeted candidates. And this is obviously where we're selling the opportunity to generate the enthusiasm, but more importantly, to provide to the candidates an understanding of the role, the company, and the culture, which is a key, very, very important to individual, hiring agents at this time, and the culture itself. And then gathering that competitive intelligence, which is very, very important through this process, talking to candidates and such. And in the pitching process, candidates with the strongest attributes for the job were encouraged to apply, and customized interviews then take shape. So during then the profiling phase, we were able to conduct customized in-depth interviews that complemented the strategy to assess the specific skills, the requirements, and the cultural fit that's so important. Now, these detailed interview notes were provided to you, and in retrospect, Beth, do you think that the profiles effectively expanded on the skills and the talents of these candidates more than, let's say, a resume could provide?
Yes, I mean, this is something that we really couldn't, we just wouldn't have time to do on our own, is the interviews that you conducted and really fleshing out a resume
Mhm.
and giving a fuller picture of each candidate. It was really very helpful. I mean, it's kind of like, when we have to do a reference check on candidates, you can read a vita and you can meet them, but beyond that, getting that additional information is always so helpful. So it was really helpful for us in a similar way.
Now, and I just want to point out before we leave this slide is the competitive intelligence piece, and that the deliverables at the end of this process is that the client receives a report of all the candidates reached. It goes beyond the list
Mhm.
of names, right? And what's really key here is that you own that data. So that information is all yours to leverage for, let's say, subsequent, searches and things of that nature. How do you feel about that part of the process and that tangible?
I mean, that's a great thing to have. I felt like, one of the unanticipated consequences for us working with Duffy is related to the pool that we attracted and the information that you provided to us. We were obviously looking for this one candidate, but because we work with you and we had this list of candidates, like we built awareness about Colorado State University and the College of
Right.
Business as a place to work. And what was interesting as a result also of this search is we ended up hiring our executive director of development. But in addition, there was another person that was hired out of this pool for another position at the university. So that was a really awesome way to leverage the value that you provided for us.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you for your time and insight. This is very, very important. And, I have a few questions for you that came in advance of this session. Beth, I hope you don't mind me asking you a few of them now.
Sure.
Um, and then, of course, for the audience, if some of you have questions for Dean Walker, please, at the left or the right of your computer, you should see an area for a chat room. If you want to add your comments there, or your questions there, we'll make sure to address those questions before we end this session. So we'll be capturing those as we go. But the first question I'd like to ask you, Beth, is let's just talk briefly about this passive talent pool. What was the quality of the candidates that you were seeing, especially as it related to the profiles that were coming to you? What was your thought on that? How did you feel about those people?
Well, there were some excellent folks in that pool, and I think folks with passive interest. I mean, that's a set of individuals we would have otherwise, never known about or never uncovered without really talking to you. And I'll also mention that, because this search was so successful, and we got so much value out of what you provided for us. We've done at least one other search together, and I'm thinking we hired another awesome person in that search, and that person I believe is had passive interest in the
Right,
position,
exactly.
and talked to her, and she's awesome. So that's a really key piece of this whole process, and I think one reason why our pool was as large and as high quality as it was.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great to hear. And also, let's just, if we can, talk a little bit about speed and the timeline you were on. You know, we, as I pointed out earlier, you really were on a tight timeline, and you, like we all are, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is a key issue for many leaders. If you could just touch on the speed and the as by which we worked through this process, what was your takeaway there?
I we you know this is just a key role, so real important to hire the right person. So in that sense, you might think, well, we just need to spend as much time as we need to, but we
Right.
worked really quickly. I think you mentioned earlier we wanted to get this thing going in 2 or 3 weeks, and you were just very available to talk with our chair of our search committee and to talk with me to really get all the details, do the intake, as you said, learn a lot about us and our culture,
Mm-hmm.
so you could help sell that to potential applicants. And, we got going really, really, really quickly. And maybe I don't, maybe in a couple months, 2 or 3 months, we had a person in the position.
Excellent. Well, we actually had a question just enter, and this is the question. This is an interesting one. Many, from time to time, there's these difficult to find candidates, as we pointed out, and sometimes location can be a hindrance. Where we're situated from a university standpoint and attracting great candidates. So one of the participants is asking, what was it that you did in this case I mean, Fort Collins isn't the most remote place in the world, but tell us a little bit, did you provide a relocation package in terms of your offering here?
Well, first of all, thank you for noting that there are more remote places than Fort Collins, Colorado. But we are an hour north of Denver. Fort Collins is a city of 160,000 people, so it's really a great place. But it
Yes.
is, if people have to relocate here, there's a lot of things to consider. You all did a great job in vetting the candidates to help them learn a little bit about Fort Collins, what's here. Again, so if they got the job offer, that they'd be willing to relocate. And I believe in the offer, we had planned to, and I can talk specifically about how this ended up. We often offer some relocation dollars in an offer letter for a candidate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, just meeting the team there, it's obviously an attractive offer for anybody. So hats off to you guys. So again, I think that could more or less conclude some of the questions we had for you. We want to thank you so much for your time today, and hopefully you enjoyed this, Beth, because we certainly did.
It was a
Um,
lot of fun. Thanks.
Good, good. And I just want to remind all the participants that you will receive a link to this webinar so you can revisit the information and share with your colleagues. We really appreciate you being part of this. I also just want to close and summarize by saying that we are in the people business, obviously. And in today's competitive environment, the best can't be hired, they must be courted. So I invite you to connect with Duffy Group on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and or check out our website at www.duffygroup.com for more information on our expertise and the industries we specialize in and around the world. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to me directly at gmusgrave@duffygroup.com. Thank you and make it a great day.